Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depends on what time you're watching this, and welcome back for another episode of the Factions Overview for Evolution Legends. So I am continuing my series of the Faction Overview, and today we're going to be covering one of my favorite factions, Abyss. Abyss just has some amazing heroes in it, and it has probably, in my opinion, the best elite hero. I usually don't cover elite heroes, but with Abyss, I have to. So let's dive in. Let's take a look. And I am talking about Succubus. So Succubus is a support hero, and she's amazing. She has some really fantastic abilities. Pretty much can be used as a hero to build like a combo build, and the way that happens is that this ability here, loves Lash. It's a passive skill. For the first two basic attacks of each battle, Succubus will whip an adjacent ally into a frenzy, dealing 60% of her attack to the target, meaning she'll damage her own ally, but giving them an extra movement. So you can put her now. Keep in mind, this is adjacent ally, so you can put her in the back line center, and she has a chance to give either the ally on her left or her right or directly in front of her an extra attack. So if you imagine comboing her with somebody like Pyrix, he's doing a lot of AoE damage. We'll cover him in a few minutes, but giving him an extra attack each round could be pretty devastating, especially if he's statted up, has all his gear enhanced and doing a lot of damage. It just basically can devastate the enemy team. Or if she's behind Kronos, giving Kronos an extra attack, an extra opportunity to hit the enemy team with his chains, thus locking them down and CCing them. Pretty devastating. I've seen just different versions of combos with her, where I've seen teams that run like two of her with like a Vebulon right in the middle, and you could imagine if Vebulon's got in lightning form and he gets two extra attacks in a round, if both of those succubuses whip him and he goes two more times, that is just going to melt your team. That's pretty devastating. So she could be used to some pretty great effect. Problem is, it's random, so you don't know if she's going to hit on the left, right, or front, so you got to kind of play with her alignment to try to optimize your chances of the hero that you want to get that extra attack, getting that extra attack. And then her other ability, Soul Seduction, plants a big kiss, dealing 100% of attack damage to a random target with a 90% chance to charm the target for 2 rounds. 90% chance. And a target that's charmed basically can't attack or use any skills for 2 rounds. So that's a really nice added benefit. Definitely recommend her. I mean, she is one of the few heroes you can use her very much through much of the mid or into the late game, depending on how you want to build a team around her. So very powerful fact. I definitely recommend giving her a try. All right, so let's jump into the epic heroes, and this faction has one of my favorite heroes in the whole game. And no, it's not Malistor. I think that's probably what you're thinking. Malistor is amazing, but I'm talking about Galileo. I'll cover her in a minute, but she is absolutely one of my favorites for many reasons. But let's jump in, take a look at Malistor. Definitely a top tier hero. Very cool artwork. Just looks like a little flying Hellboy. And let's take a look at some of his abilities. Abyssal Fury unleashes a raging fire from the abyss, dealing 270% of attack damage to current target and any targets on either side. Basically a frontline AoE effect. Does a ton of damage, very devastating. Definitely a big damage dealer here. Crit Aura, passive skill. At the beginning of battle, generates a crit aura that lasts 3 rounds, increasing crit for other allies by 30%. The aura disappears when malistor dies. Will only be cast once if multiple malistors in the lineup. So, meaning you can't run multiple malistors and like stack that crit buff. But a 30% crit buff for all the allies at the beginning of the battle is absolutely amazing, and that's important for many reasons. One, obviously, the more crits your team gets, the more damage they're going to output, but he has an ability that triggers when your team crits, and we'll cover that in a second. So, Demon Pounce. When an ally's basic attack or active skill deals a crit strike, Malistor has a 75% chance of making a follow-up attack on the target, dealing attack 170% damage. An AoE attack will only trigger this effect once. So like if you're running Pyrix, he does like a big AoE shot and it crits. He might follow up with a Demon Pounce. That could only happen once, but on the basic attacks, it can happen throughout the entire game. So throw an artifact on him like Demon Eye that every time you crit, basically you get a stack and your crit damage goes up by X%, and just watch those stacks over the match just build up, and his damage just keeps going higher and higher and higher. So the longer he stays alive, the stronger he gets. Definitely a high priority target. If you're battling against him, you don't want this guy living too long because he'll just melt your team down. And he has the ability basically to hit any line. Wherever a crit happens, he can hit that line. He can hit that enemy. So, yeah, pretty amazing effect. Definitely one of the reason that makes him so powerful and such a top tier hero. And then finally, Demon Power, just stat increase, right? Attack increases by 40% and crit increases by 30%. Yeah, if you're running Abyss, this guy's a must-have. He's a beast. All right, let's take a look at crowrock. Crowrock, one of the Abyss tanks. I think crowrock has awesome looking artwork, very cool skin. He looks way more menacing than I think he actually is. I think he's an okay tank. I think he, if you need an Abyss tank for like faction or a bonus and things like that, yeah, throw him in there. If you're building, like if you're trying to do like some type of fire damage build, sure, throw him in there. But the problem I have with crowrock is that his ultimate just doesn't have the impact that I would like out of an ultimate. So I'll explain that in a second. So let's take a look at it, right? Lava Screen. So this is an ultimate. Adds a lava screen for south that lasts 2 rounds. When the screen is active, Molten Titan can't move, but all damage is reduced by 50% and attackers are dealt 100% burning damage for 3 rounds. So it sounds great, right? Like anybody that attacks him is going to take stacks of burning damage, 100% damage that's going to last for 3 rounds. Plus, he's mitigating 50% of incoming damage. So he makes himself extremely tanky. So as a tank, as a frontline defense, I think he fulfills that role very well. The problem is he doesn't do anything for 2 rounds. He's not attacking, and and fire damage only ticks at the end of a round, right? So it can be frustrating sometimes when you need him to attack somebody that's right in front of him because it's going to kill that hero, and he just puts up a shield instead, and then that enemy hero lasts for another round and gets more damage on your team. That can be pretty annoying. So I think that's personally why I don't like him. I think he lacks some of the utility. But as a pure like tank, I think he does really well in that role. Monolith Dash. So passive skill Monolith Dash is triggered immediately after Lava Screen ends, dealing 170% of attack to current target and adjacent enemies. Basically, he sits there with that shield for 2 rounds, just taking a beating, and then at the end of that, he charges the enemy in the front line basically, and then like hits like that hero, and then like basically does like splash damage and things like that, right, to adjacent heroes. He also, when he does that, let's see, I think it's this ability here, Flame Mastery. When Monolith Dash hits burning enemies, Talos sets off all burn effects on the target, dealing damage equal to 100% of the remaining burn damage, capped at 1,000%, and recovering HP equal to 85% of the damage down. So again, if you're building around this, if you're doing a burn build, and you just and he hits targets with a bunch of like burning stacks, this will trigger and deal quite a bit of damage, and then basically heal up. So it can be effective, but again, he's just sitting there doing nothing but taking a beating for 2 rounds before that triggers. So again, he's cool looking. He can be okay, and if you just need that frontline defense plus the Abyss, faction Aurora bonus, you can consider running him in your lineup. Okay, Heath, the other tank from Abyss. Heath is awesome. Like I had her early on, was using her. I kind of went away from her as like just some of the RNG of like the heroes that I was drawing. But if you look at her abilities, she's got a ton of utility. She's actually a really cool hero, fantastic tank to run, somebody you might want to consider. So let's take a look. Flying Slash soars to the horizon and attacks in a line, dealing 250% of attack damage to the current target and any targets on either side. So yeah, basically just a frontline slash, does some pretty decent damage at 250%, and I think this gets buffed. She's one of those heroes that as time goes on, she buffs herself, so this could get even more powerful as the match goes on. So let's take a look at Phantom Slash. Basic attacks are replaced by Phantom Slash, slashing a random enemy 3 consecutive times, dealing 130% of attack damage with a 35% chance to taunt the target after they attack for 2 rounds. So this is one of the big upsides to her. That taunt is great because it forces those targets to attack her. And the targets, when they're taunted, they can't use their skills during that time. So they're forced to attack the taunter. So yeah, very useful in kind of keeping the focus on her. She's kind of tanky as she gets a little bit more powerful as the match goes on. So definitely some great utility there, and keeping like enemies like Kronos or other heroes from like using their ultimates is really huge. Hell Shield, HP increases by 50% and block increases by 60%. The block increase here is really important. The reason being is block counter. When Heath blocks, increases attack and crit by 5% for 4 rounds, and she blocks a lot. So each time she's blocking, she's basically buffing herself. So as she survives longer, she's getting stronger, and those like frontline attacks are going to do a lot more damage. So overall, really cool artwork. I think she's got a really cool skin here. Definitely worth giving a try. I recommend trying her out and see how she can fit into your lineup. Like if you're needing that extra survivability, or you need, if other heroes are just getting burned down and you need to, like, this taunt can really help keep your line alive. All right, next. My favorite hero in this game, Galileo. She's amazing. I love the artwork on her. She just looks menacing. The wings, the eyeballs in her shoulders, that sword, that menacing floating sword with that eyeball. It looks like it's going to like suck you in. She's great. She's a tank, but she's an unusual tank. She doesn't start off the match as being super tanky. She's actually a bit squishy for a tank. But as the match goes on and the more ultimates that she fires off, she's continually buffing herself throughout the match and just adding to her tankiness. But one of the best things about her is the fact that she has a leech ability that she could be near death and with one swing of her sword go right back up to full health. She is many times been the last hero standing in a match for me against 3 enemies and just taking them all down herself. She's definitely a pusher in that sense. So let's take a look and talk through some of her abilities. Soul Eater Sword. Wields a magic sword extracting the souls of 3 random enemies, dealing 160% of attack damage and stealing 10% of the target's attack and armor for 3 rounds. So that's that tankiness part. Like I'm saying, like, is her alt score off? She's stealing attack damage and she's stealing armor and just like kind of adding to her tankiness. The second one, Soul Shift. When taking an attack, the magic sword will get soul energy, up to 5 stacks. Your next basic attack will consume all soul energy, each stack boosting this attack by 20%. And 20% leech. So that's what I'm talking about. She's taking attacks, she's building up these stacks, and when she finally does her swing, she hits 3 targets. She basically hits the front line. And if she hits all 3 targets, all that damage, 20% of that damage for each target is coming right back to her for health, and that's how she's able to go from like near death almost all the way up to full health in one swing. It's amazing, and she could last a long time as she starts to kind of pop off. Fallen Will, HP increases by 50%, crit increases by 40%. That crit increase is amazing. Again, like, give her something like, put her with an artifact like Demon Eye that just adds every time you crit. You gain a stack of damage, and just watch those stacks build up on her, and her damage just continues to increase over the course of the battle, and she could be pretty devastating. And then Soul Reap, passive skill, basic attack is replaced with an attack dealing 160% damage to front row targets. For each target killed by this attack, you will immediately get 1 stack of soul energy. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So she hits that entire front line. Enemies getting killed, she's adding back to her stacks, and she's keeping that buff up. Amazing hero. I ran her. I actually didn't run as a tank. I didn't run her in my front line for a long time. I actually ran her in my back line. I wanted to keep her alive and hitting that front line, getting her ults off, getting those stacks up, and that's oftentimes why she was the last hero standing, and just taking out entire lines of enemies by the end. I've recently started playing with her in the front line more. I've got her at Mythic now. She's the first Mythic hero. I was really excited about that. I posted a video about that the other day. Worth giving a chance. I mean, I think she's definitely top tier 1 hero. You're running Abyss. Definitely want to have her in your lineup. One of the best in the game, in my opinion. And she looks awesome, so why not? Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Pyrix. Pyrix looks cool, looks menacing, big red dragon. Not a whole lot to say about this guy. He is just a pure damage dealer, man. He for leveled, he's gonna probably be one of your top damage dealers in your lineup. Mainly because most of his attacks have, if not all of them, have splash damage. So they're doing massive amounts of damage that are spread out across all of the enemies, and that's great. Downside is that splash damage is boosting the enemy team's ultimate abilities, so that could be a bit detrimental, right? So if you don't have some type of crown control, Chronos or Fleb or somebody like that in the front line that's locking down those heroes, you're going to be eating a lot of ults, which could be pretty devastating. But definitely a top tier hero. Let's take a look at some of these abilities. Summons Meteor to deal 260% of attack to current target and 15% splash damage to the adjacent enemies. Yeah, so this is ultimate. Again, dealing pretty significant damage, 260% to his target, and then everything around that is taking 50% of that damage. And let's see. Flame Sputter. Basic attacks are replaced with quickly spewing out 3 flame orbs. Each flame orb deals 70% of attack to a random target and 15% splash damage to adjacent enemies. Again, like I said, a lot of AoE damage. That's what this guy does. That's his specialty, just, trying to melt everybody at once. I equip him with something like Arctic Heart and watch these attacks freeze enemies as he targets them. That's a strategy you can do as well. If you want to give him extra damage output, you can give him some of the legendary artifacts like Covenant of War that adds a percentage of attack damage as his health decreases over the course of the match. So do your thing, whatever you want to do. Okay, Dragonfall. Attack increases by 35%, HP increases by 20%, skill damage reduction increases by 30%, just a lot of, just stat buffs. And then finally, Flame Blast, splash damage dealt increases to 35%. Yeah, tons of AoE. That's why this guy's going to be probably near the top of your damage output for pretty much every match. Definitely worth giving a try. Yeah, he's tough. Okay, and then finally, Nord, another tank. Nord's an interesting hero. I've used him in my flame builds because he does do some flame damage. He's got an ability that can add some flame damage once he pops off a bit. He also has a stun. A lot of that's really inconsistent, which is why I'm not a big fan of this hero. But let's take a look. I'll talk through him. Hammer Blow shakes the ground, dealing 180% of attack damage to the target and adjacent enemies, with a 15% chance to stun the targets for 2 rounds. So yeah, 50% chance. That's extremely low, right? That's you can't depend on that. You're waiting for a whole lot of RNG to happen perfectly for this to kind of go off. Like the stun for 2 rounds is great. If it goes off, that's really helpful, but it's just unreliable. There's other heroes that have better percentages, like 40% and above. Like I think Ungril's is 40%. Royal Bloodline, when Nord is attacked and its HP falls below 30%, all negative effects are removed and 40% of own max HP is recovered. So triggers once per battle. Basically, as he nears death, he's going to grow really large, get a bunch of HP back, and all the negative status effects against him are just going to disappear. That's pretty useful. That's pretty nice. It adds to his tankiness, lets him survive a little bit longer, protect your back line a little bit longer, and also put a little bit more damage out. Royal Armor, HP increases by 50%, armor increases by 30%, just stat buffs. And then finally, Flame Avatar. When Royal Bloodline is triggered, Flame Avatar is also triggered, giving all attacks an extra 120% burning effect for 2 rounds, and giving self-control immunity. Flame Avatar lasts for 3 rounds. So yeah, for 3 rounds after he goes into that Royal Bloodline, he basically... so the Flame Avatar, so that is triggered. When he grows, he can't be CC'd again, and he's adding that 100% burning damage for 2 rounds to his attack. So that's where, if you're trying to do some kind of like burn build or something like that, or he can kind of fit in to that lineup. So if you're going to build a team around him, yeah, he's worth giving a try for sure. And he does have some utility. The stuns are nice when they do go off. They just don't go off very often. So just you can't rely on that as a dependable CC effect. There are other tanks that provide much better reliable CC. So very cool hero though. Give him a try if you want to build a team around him. If you use him a lot, you like him, you're using him to great effect, let me know in the comments. Love to hear about it. And that's it. That's Abyss. Very strong faction. Has some really cool heroes, some great utility, some great damage output. Thanks for watching. If you like the content, please sub, like, hit the like button. Leave some comments if you want to discuss. And have a great day. We'll see you next time.